The playoffs have arrived. Need to know who to start and sit for Week 14 in the National Football League, and that is what we are here to do on CBS Local Sports. Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, Ryan Bass hanging out here with you. And at quarterback, Blake Bortles, been playing great football as of late. You're rolling with him again.
You know, I know a lot of fantasy owners that have like a big poster of Blake Bortles on their wall. They love looking at Blake Bortles.
More than one?
They know all of his mannerisms and everything that he does, and you certainly should know what his stat lines have been this season. He's been fantastic, certainly the last two games. Bortles is on fire, and he's got a great matchup against the Colts. There's no reason to avoid him. I know you're thinking, maybe I start Matt Ryan or Phillip Rivers or some of these other quarterbacks that have been riding him the rest of the way. No, Blake Bortles is your starter. Go with him this week.
Just like he does, I'm going to stick my tongue out at you. Matthew Stafford this week. What do we do with him?
Oh, we were talking about you, Bortles fan?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I think Stafford's okay to start if you don't have anybody else, but I just don't know if I see a lot of upside with him in the matchup against St. Louis. And yes, that Rams defense is banged up, might be missing a bunch of key starters. In fact, Robert Quinn out for the year. That's going to help Stafford have time in the pocket to throw. But I think there's a lot of other quarterbacks with a lot more upside than Matthew Stafford this week. Guys like Tyrod Taylor, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brian Hoyer.
Jameis Winston?
Jameis Winston's another one. Good call. I think they're all good enough to start ahead of Matthew Stafford. For me, he's just outside my top 12.
Andy Reid came out this week and said that it's going to be a running back by committee for Kansas City. What's that mean for Charkandrick West or Spencer Ware?
I'll still start West ahead of Ware. I think they could both get a lot of run against San Diego. It's a favorable matchup for them at home. They ran away with it the last time they played against San Diego, 33-3. A similar situation could play out because the Chargers are bad. I don't mind starting Charkandrick West and expecting 11 to 12 fantasy points.
Speaking of West and Ware, two guys you didn't think you'd be starting this point in the playoffs. Buck Allen wasn't one you thought either. Number one fantasy running back last week, but we have to sit him this week, right?
In standard leagues for sure. PPR leagues, it comes down to who you have on your team because he's done a nice job catching the ball. And I think you look at two of the last three games against the Seahawks, you've seen Sean Drone and D'Angelo Williams be heavily involved as pass catchers. So that's really what's going to save Javorius Allen. He's not going to score this week against Seattle. You've seen Seattle clamp down against running backs for the majority of the season. And with this offense being as inept as it potentially should be with Matt Schaub under center, I think it's going to be tough for Javorius Allen to have a big day.
Let's take a look at wide receivers. In the Dolphins offense, it's been anemic as of late, but Monday night under the lights in primetime could be a big outing for both Dolphins wide receivers.
Really love Jarvis Landry this week. You know, he complained about, the lack of involvement. I think that's going to, come back to help his cause this week. He's facing his former college teammate. There's a friendly rivalry going on with Odell Beckham. We'll see if he does his part. Beckham's going to do his share to put up points. And then Devontae Parker, look, he scored in 2 straight games, 15 targets in those 2 games. He's heavily involved now in this offense as long as Rashard Matthews is out. And I think both guys have a good opportunity. Giants have really struggled with receivers of late. Both Dolphins guys should do well.
Who we sitting, Dave, at wide receiver?
Randall Cobb is someone who just hasn't done anything for us. The last 4 games, 8 fantasy points or less. And now he's taking on Dallas. They've been pretty good against the pass, so I'd be a little nervous to go with Randall Cobb this week. You see the projection, almost 10 fantasy points. Man, when's the last time we would have loved to have seen that?
Been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't. In PPR leagues, I think he's even still a sit. Don't want to use him. Try and get away from him.
Big contract that the Green Bay Packers paid him in the offseason has not lived up to it to this point. At tight end, though, it's been a long time since we've seen Austin Seferian-Jenkins reach the end zone. Week 1, in fact. Does he do it this time?
You got to figure he's got a chance to do it. If he can't do it against New Orleans, then he can't do it against anybody. And that Saints defense is just pathetic. The door is going to be open for Seferian-Jenkins. Now that he's knocked off some rust, to step up, get more catches, and get more yardage. I don't like these projections at all. He's going to do much better than that.
One of the top pass catchers in Week 13, thanks to a Hail Mary, was Richard Rodgers. A lot of people want to start him this week. Should we?
Yeah, I was touting Richard Rodgers last week. He was my guy, and then he delivered. This week, I don't think you can get the same type of production. Dallas has been great against tight ends for the majority of the season. Look at what they did against Gronkowski. Look at what they did against Jordan Reed last week. Rodgers is, I don't want to say strictly matchup dependent, but he's matchup dependent. So it's going to be a little tough for him to live up to those numbers from last week, certainly. But I think you're going to get a complete downturn. I would sit him this week again.
Full disclosure for Start and Sit is available on CBSSports.com. If you're in the playoffs, good luck the rest of the way on the road to a championship. Thanks for watching on CBS Local Sports.